Welcome to a new edition of the Neon Jazz interview series with Renee and Lang of the jazz group known as BlissBliss. The married duo joined their different but compatible music backgrounds of rock, pop, R&B, and jazz to create a unique sound that appears on their new EP, 3. Their third project was primarily recorded live in the studio with 3 other musicians and originated as snippets from ideas that both Lang and Renee had been working on for a few years. It comes out in November of 2018, and they talked about that and so much more from 2 very rich roads in music that go separately yet conjoin. So get to know them and dig this interview, my friends.
Renee, Lang, thank you for taking a minute out for Neon Jazz. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, thanks for having us.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. So let's go ahead and start off with the elephant in the room, so to speak, your new EP due out in November. Talk to me about this and how you feel about it.
The EP 3 is coming out November 16th. We're really excited about it. We've had some really great activity on the current single, I'm Coming Through, and the video as well. We are based in Nashville, so there is no lack of access to and just incredible killer players. And we were really fortunate when we went in to cut the track, this grouping of songs. We literally, it was a really cool thing. We just went in. Everybody sort of had a basic idea of the way the arrangements of the songs went, but we just played it, and we just kind of let naturally happen what happens, and we just had some incredible musicians that just really interpreted the music beautifully. So we are very, very excited about it.
You are billed as sophisti pop, and for our purposes here at Neon Jazz, we get involved with the jazz, but you have rock, pop, R&B. You have a pretty big cauldron of influences that go into your sound. Talk to me about this sound and how those elements have come in on 3.
Well, I grew up, my mom was a piano player and my stepdad was a sax player, so I kind of grew up listening to classical and jazz, swing, and Renee grew up listening to a lot of Motown, and we kind of came of age, so to speak, musically through the 70s and 80s, when a lot of music was influenced by British artists. I think maybe that informed some of the way that we began wanting to write. Renee did a couple of solo records as a solo artist, and they were produced by a guy over in England. She did both of those records in England. And I think there was just kind of a dynamic in music at that time that really kind of just answered a lot of, or maybe just reflected a lot of the things that we love about music. I grew up listening to bands like Yes and Led Zeppelin, and then loved bands like Ohio Players and Earth, Wind & Fire.
Yeah, all the funk stuff, the soul stuff.
Yeah. And then, Renee grew up listening to Motown, but she loves jazz and she loved rock acts as well. So our music has always been this combination of somewhat, the term that we found was sophistopop, and it's just it's a subgenre. You can look it up on Wikipedia or Amazon or any of those places, and it just describes the music that kind of originated in that time frame. But there's artists that are doing that stuff now,
and it has all the elements that we have in our music, which is a combination of pop, jazz,
soul, R&B, rock.
Yeah.
So that's kind of it. Just is reflective of all the different influences that we love.
And I would say in this modern music world that we live in now, being diversified is probably not a bad idea.
Well, hopefully, exactly, yeah.
That's one, we hope that.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that, being a musician. So let's talk about how you two met, how you two have kind of come together as a musical force. Give me kind of the big bang, so to speak, and how we are where we're at.
I didn't know.
Oh, yeah.
I'll jump in.
Okay, so my story is I moved here in 1984. I'm not a Nashville native at all, and this everybody here is from somewhere else. I mean, it's kind of rare to find a true Nashvilleian, but anyway, I moved here in '84 and got into town, and literally, I mean, this is not what happens for everybody, but for me, literally, I was here for a month, auditioned for an artist by the name of Amy Grant, and literally was on the road within literally 2 months after auditioning and rehearsing. And at the time, just a little background, Amy Grant was the second largest touring act behind Tina Turner. When Tina Turner came out with her What's Love Got to Do With It tour, as far as like a draw, I mean, we were playing like 17-seat auditoriums, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I'm sorry. My bad. Coffee drink needs to kick in. But anyway, that would confuse the numbers. But then the other thing that was really cool is Lang moved here for the same reason to do music in 1985, about a year later. And we met, and through some mutual musician friends, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I think it turned out to be okay. We had a lot in common musically, amazingly, even though both of us kind of considered ourselves to come from different backgrounds. We ended up getting married in '86 and really seriously started going after the...
I would say she was on... We kind of encountered or went through an interesting time period for a while when we first got married, because Renee was a solo artist and she was still singing background vocals for people, and I was playing drums for different artists. So I'd leave on Tuesday and get back on Saturday, and she'd leave on Thursday and get back on Monday, and, you know, the following Monday, and it was just like, I don't think this is going to really keep our marriage together if we keep, you know, crossing like ships in the night here. So partly out of just a desire to figure out how can we keep our marriage together and keep doing music, I think we started kind of thinking, well, what if we tried to do something together? Mm-hmm. And, you know, we were trying to figure out how to do that from an artistic perspective when we first came up with the idea, and kind of thought this is going to be an odd pairing, but really the writing is what brought us together. The more that we wrote together, the more that we talked about the music that we both loved, we found that there was more common ground for us in terms of an artistic vision than there was, you know, uncommon. So, so it just kind of seemed like a natural fit eventually, like, well, let's just try to do this. And we ended up, not too long after that, signing a record deal with an independent label here in town, as a duo, as BlissBliss. Yeah. And so we put a record out and had a #1 off of it. And so that's kind of the origins, I guess.
So this is your third project together, this album. Wonderful. So talk to me about, you obviously both have a wealth of experience, not only on the stage, but at the world at large, traveling and being in front of a lot of people. What did you learn from not only those people on stage that had so much experience, but from being exposed to such large audiences and then coming together to do your own thing? How did all that lead to you two and the duo that you have going?
It's an interesting... I'll start to answer this, and then you jump in.
We're kind of like a two-headed monster, so we may end up finishing each other's sentences.
You know, the old music industry used to be, you know, the label-based industry. We had, like you mentioned, you know, a wonderful experience of being on some very big stages with some really big artists and height of what the music industry, I think, you know, kind of when you look back historically, was the peak of that model, which was probably the 80s and 90s. I think more than anything, it informed this desire that both of us had to create this understanding that we can do this. Because we're doing this with other people, you know, behind them, so we can do this. And Renee did have a solo career prior. So I think what happened was it just felt like a natural, like, well, of course this is going to happen. And since that, and not to get too spiritual with it, but I think it's something both of us just felt like this is what we're made to do. And so as the years have gone by, and it's been a tough road to hoe, so to speak, with the change of the industry and things like that, it just never entered our minds that we wouldn't keep doing it. And so now it's just a different model, and we're the tough the tough thing has been over the past few years, having to kind of switch our mindsets and go, okay, we've got to learn. We're old dogs, but we got to learn some new tricks. And so we're learning a lot about marketing our stuff on social media and learning how to use email effectively. Basically, aiming our music at the people that we think will really, really love it.
And really, that's no different than, that's the one consistent factor through all of the incredible changes that have happened, is that people, they are touched by songs, they're touched by stories, and that's the connection point. Now, we love, obviously for us, to me, the ultimate connection point with an audience is to actually do your music live, you know. But we realize that there's not a limit to that with social media and stuff. It's just a different way to reach them. But I think audiences they come to hear music for a couple different reasons. They want to have a great time. They want to they want to get away from the pressures of life. They want to be inspired. They want to be encouraged. You know, I mean, there's all kinds of reasons why people come to see music. And those of us who play it, we just have the passion to do it, and we love it. And that's kind of the thing I think for us to personally, outside of the audience, is we just have a passion to do this and have kept doing it regardless of the changes in the music industry, the roadblocks, having to learn new things, that whole thing. We're still going.
So the one thing you mentioned, too, that's changed quite a bit since you met in the mid-'80s is we have this new force of social media, and there's a level of that's effectiveness and brevity, and I want to ask you this. If you come to Kansas City, you need to sell yourself as a duo presenting this music to an audience base. How would you sell yourselves? What are you going to say in, say, an ad in a local weekly or somewhere on Facebook to entice someone to say, you know what, I'm going to go see them tonight?
Well, that's a really good question.
Mm-hmm.
I would say that our music is something that it's an approach to music that steps a little outside the norm. Listeners who have a little bit more of a background in terms of a wider swath of understanding are really going to love this music because it harkens back to things like melody and harmony and more involved rhythms but at the same time is really accessible to a large audience. But ultimately, we sing about life from the perspective that love is worth every effort. It always wins. That life is not a bad thing or a negative thing, and even if you've gone through hard stuff, there's always hope.
I would agree with that, and I would just say also, just adding to that there is, there's such an incredible amount of music out there, and we're not unaware of that. I think sometimes what happens, though, there happens to be people who are just, the more current music is gunning for the younger audience, and that's fine and that's okay. I think sometimes, though, you have groups of people that simply because of where they are in life, maybe their age or whatever, they're just not, they're going back and listening to the old school stuff, and, we don't have any illusions that we're going to appeal to an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old. But I think we're going to appeal to people who have had more life experience under their belts. They're not ready to lay down and say, okay, I'm done. I'm ready to just kind of drift off into the sunset. I think we're going to reach people that are, they are going after it. They're going after life. They're just trying to have good relationships with people. They're trying to stay motivated, inspired, and I think that's the people we appeal to. I don't want to limit ages or anything like that, but I think our music is a little bit more up in the mature audience area, and that's really who we are trying to seek to appeal to primarily, but we obviously don't want to leave anybody off of that.
So the one thing about you, too, is that there's been a level of longevity that's gone into your career, and I think there's a real strong testament that goes into a lot of bands and a lot of performers that stay around for a long time. It's one thing to have a hit, and it's another thing to be around for a long time and see all of the decades of change that you've seen. What's so powerful about music that will always be strong? I'm sure in the mid-'80s, 70s, the 60s, music is just as strong as it is today. It's different, but it's strong. Why is it, as performers, when you see fans, why is it that music will always be here and be such a strong force for people?
I believe that audiences basically come to shows for kind of three reasons, if you can distill it down. People come to have, they want to experience, moments. They want to remember something from a performance. They come to experience moments. They also come to have their lives changed. Now, that's a really big concept, and from that perspective, nobody up on stage can change anybody in the audience. But to the degree that the artist is prepared to go up there and create these moments and fulfill that desire that the audience comes to leave their lives behind, so to speak, for an hour and a half, to experience these things and then to have their lives changed, to the degree that the artist is ready to and able and conscious of those needs that the audience has, to that degree, I think that artist can have an enormous impact in the lives of those audience members.
And not even really be aware of that.
Well,
to a certain degree.
The audience isn't.
Right.
The audience isn't aware of that. They're not consciously going, doggone it, you didn't create any experiences for me. I didn't, I don't remember anything really, and you didn't change my life. I want my money back. They're not really speaking in that way, but they are subconsciously spending that $10, $15, $20 going out at night, hassle with the parking, going to a club that, there's beer spilled everywhere, can't really hear the artist, can't see him maybe because there's 150 people in front of them. But they do that because they want something, and they believe that music has something that's bigger than life, something that's bigger than just the everyday. And I think that's why people go to experience music, whether it's from an artist who's 18 or 64. The needs might be a little different based upon the age, but the desire to have music impact them is still the same.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that's why I believe and why we love music and its ability, because it did the same thing to us, and we just want to do that for people.
What live shows have you witnessed that really moved you, that really made a deep impact on who you are as musicians?
Oh my gosh. It's like, where do you even start? Okay, so this is probably going to date me a bit, but the very first concert I ever saw was the Jackson 5. Now, I've had people go, who's the Jackson 5? I'm going, you have got to be kidding me. That's the group that Michael Jackson was in before before he stepped out and did solo stuff. And I got to tell you, my mom took me, and when I went to see that show, I was like, I had always loved singing and stuff. Even as a kid, I was, listening to the radio, singing along, all that. That was the show for me that went, I'm doing this. This is what I want to do. And it was cool because I was like going, it was everything that Lang said, everything that he just said about what you experienced. It was, okay, I was probably screaming too with everybody else in there, but it was a deeper, as a creative person and as a person who loved to sing, it touched me in such a deep way that all these many, many years later, I can think about that initial experience and still get the goosebumps on my arm and go, oh my gosh, yes, this is what I want to do. And I just love that I was able to see that show. Now, I won't go through the litany of, there have been different shows. It's crazy. I saw Kansas, if you can believe this, Kansas, just before they hit huge. It was either Left Overture or Point and Overture. I can't remember which record came first.
Left Overture.
I saw them at a college campus, and I totally freaked out. I was like going, oh my gosh, these guys are amazing. It was it's progressive rock, which is kind of outside of sort of the music I gravitated towards, but same feeling like this music really, really moves me. And so when I go to a concert, I'm just like, it just gets me really like excited because it just feeds into the passion I have, and there's kind of a weird camaraderie you have with musicians and with other artists. It's kind of hard to explain, but anyway, I'll let Lang kind of weigh in on his experiences.
I saw the very first concert I ever saw, I think was kind of that experience for me. And it was the reason I went was to see this brand new band called Foreigner. And the only song they had out at the time was Feels Like the First Time. But they were opening for this other band that I didn't know and didn't really care about, called Uriah Heep. And I just remember kind of like going, oh my gosh, you know, because I'd heard the song on the radio, but I'd never, just never kind of connected the dots that you can actually go hear those people that you heard on the radio.
Yeah.
And then I got to see some really great shows. I remember seeing Tears for Fears, and they were amazing. And I got to see U2 back when I think it was like Joshua Tree. I think maybe it was either Joshua Tree or Unforgettable. No, what's it called? What was that? Unforgettable Fire? No, what's it called?
Unforgettable Fire. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it had like I think it had Pride in the Name of Love on that one, and anyway, you know, and it was before they just became like freakishly, you know, everything was U2 in the world.
Yeah.
But they were still huge, but they kind of not moved into the almost iconic place that they kind of moved into. And so it was just a great show. They were still just way into it. And I'm not saying they aren't. Anyway, yeah, those were some really great shows.
Uh-huh.
Wonderful. So let me ask you this. I'm going to kind of bring everything down to this. Actually, I got two more questions. First of all, what do you want the listener that gets your album 3 to get out of it? What do you want them to feel from your album?
Man, hope.
Yeah. Inspiration.
Inspiration. Like they get to chill with some music, you know, some cool music. But this is kind of our audience is made up of folks who probably like artists like Steely Dan, maybe John Mayer, Sade,
Seal,
maybe like Brand New Heavies. So this is like, we're hoping that they're going to go, oh my gosh, another artist that I can really love that kind of music with.
Right.
So our desire is that they'd be able to go, oh my gosh, this is so cool. It's pushing my buttons.
Yeah. And also too, you know, I think lyrically our lyrical content is pretty much upbeat. It's not like, you know, I think we're just trying to relate to people on an everyday basis, you know. It's like,
we're not sardonic, kind of like Steely Dan and, you know, doing stuff like that, but lyrically it's more hopeful, more inspiring, encouraging.
Yeah, that kind of thing.
You know, affirming.
Fun.
Yeah, fun.
Cool. Yeah. So let me ask you this. Everyone has a perception of who you are as a couple. Your family, your friends, your fans, but you know yourself best as a unit. Who do you think you are?
Wow, that's a heavy question.
I'd say
how do you come up with these questions?
Yeah,
just go with my intuition. That's all.
Yeah. I'll speak for who I think Renee is, and maybe then she can speak for. Is that okay if I say who I think?
Yeah, totally.
I think Renee is. She has this ability to affirm who people are through her singing. She has this thing. She is kind of like she's a little bit of an unexpected deep water. She kind of has this pop voice, but there's something about when she sings, I think, that allows people to kind of look at themselves and receive hope. she's got a soulful quality to her voice, but not speaking just about what she does, but who she is extremely faithful, extremely conscientious, and she has this quality to champion other people, and that's who I think she is, and I think that comes across in our music.
I would say when Lang is the kind of person that he's very steadfast, committed to excellence as a person, and musically definitely very committed to excellence. He's got an incredible ear. I mean, he just hears in the this is the musical side of him. In the chordal area, he's very tuned into exactly what he wants to hear. And as a person, I would say he even has that quality in his personal life. He's very perceptive of people around him. He's got a real knack for. I've seen this happen many, many times where we've had this experience in our personal lives when we're just hanging out with people, and we've had it in our kind of professional lives, whether it's been somebody over in our studio working on music. He has a way of just disarming people that may have walls and they need a breakthrough, and he just has such an incredible way to create an atmosphere where people feel comfortable in that. And I've seen this incredible. It's like when we go to see my family, it's like they want to hear everything he has to say. And I'm like, excuse me, I've been in this family forever, but for some reason they've kind of given him this sort of like title of sage or something. But so I guess I say this because, it's really easy for us as musical people to totally focus in on what a person does, and that's all important. But what's important is there's a consistency in his personal life as a person, and a consistency in the musical life of wisdom, of excellence, of character in his person, and what he's trying to achieve in the music with us and other people. He's an incredible teacher. If somebody doesn't, a lot of people come into the recording process completely freaked out, and he's just really able to help relax and come into the process and understand it and articulate that in a way to where they don't feel intimidated or attacked.
Okay.
I just appreciate that about you. So
I'm buying you the couch.
Okay.
There you go. The ulterior motive. Perfect. Hey, thank you again. Good luck with the album.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joe. Really appreciate it, man.
Thanks for listening and tuning in to yet another Neon Jazz interview, where we give you a bit of insight into the finest players in L.A., NYC, Kansas City, and spots all over the world, giving fans all that jazz. And thanks to Renee and Lang of BlissBliss for their time, their stories, and their music. If you want to hear more interviews, go to Famous Interviews with Joe Domino on the iTunes Store. Visit neonjazz at youtube.com, and for everything Neon Jazz, go to the neonjazz.blogspot.com. Until next time, enjoy the jazz, my friends.
Ain't it always love that finds a way?
Neon Jazz.